Disclaimer! The following episode contains spoilers for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Don't go crying to your mum if we spoil it for you. You've been warned! Welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. And this week, I'd say it's better than the comic book version, but I haven't actually read it. Screw you, there's too many event comics anyway! Cue the music! Hello there, Capers, and as I said, welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast for Place to Hang Your Cape. My name's Scott James Merridew, and this is the show where we talk about various geek and nerd-related topics, and I'm joined each week by a very special different guest. My guest today is a writer for A Place to Hang Your Cape. Give it up, Capers, for Kayleigh Clark! How you doing, Kayleigh?
Howdy, hey! It's good to be here.
It's very good to have you here. I'm very glad you're here, because you've been doing the Place to Hang Your Cape review write-ups for Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
That I have. It's been a wild ride, to say the least. It almost feels like it was too short. Like, I want it to keep on going.
I mean, it was only 6 episodes, which actually, as a British person, I think is the perfect amount.
Fair enough. It just feels like it's such a big story, and it's so impossible nowadays to think like, oh my goodness, this is less than 10 episodes. Because, like, you've seen so many series that have, like, 12 to 24 episodes per season, and just seeing, like, a 6-episode miniseries, it's kind of out of the ordinary, but at the same time, like, well done crafting a wonderful story that only lasts such a short period of time.
I mean, you could make the argument that Falcon and the Winter Soldier is, in fact, a miniseries. And some people have even said that it really should have been released, all the episodes sequentially over one day so you could be binged, or even as a longer multi-hour two-parter. We're going to get into all of that and much more in a little bit, Capers. But before we do that, we've got to do the news! Bunch of news to get through, so let's get right to it. First of all, I'm very excited about this. Pixar has released a casting call for a trans youth.
Exciting stuff. Oh my goodness. Tell me more.
So, a Twitter account called Transmarch, which I'm very sorry to say I'm not very familiar with, has confirmed this as legitimate. And they include a screenshot of a Pixar casting call with a big Pixar logo at the front, saying, casting search, Pixar Animation Studios, quote, Pixar is casting a youth voiceover role for an upcoming animated project. The character, Jess, is a 14-year-old transgender girl. She's compassionate, funny, and always has your back. We're looking for actresses 12 to 17 years old who, bullet points, are enthusiastic, outgoing, funny, and energetic, feel comfortable acting in front of a microphone, can authentically portray a 14-year-old transgender girl. Authentically portray is the main thing. In fact, that whole sentence is underlined. They want to make it clear we were looking for authentic trans people. If you know a child who fits the description and would like to audition for the role, her legal guardian should contact casting@pixar.com. Yes!
It's about time we've got a transgender youth right up in the screen. Oh my goodness. And it's for a movie that we don't know about yet, right? We don't know a title, we don't know premise, we don't know anything yet.
I can only assume that it's well into pre-production. It might even be a movie that does not end up being made, although I sincerely hope it does, because especially in the world of voiceover, more trans people are be giving more opportunities to play not just characters, but also trans characters in particular. And it's so good that Pixar, especially, is taking this big step forward. And indeed that they're sharing, I don't know if this is illegal or not, I don't think it is, but that they're sharing this casting call so that people, A, it gets the word out, and also that people know that there are opportunities, acting opportunities for trans people, not cisgendered people playing trans characters, which we've had enough. I'm sorry, Eddie Redmayne, you were great, but that wasn't really what we needed.
Yeah, exactly. Goodness, this is going to be such a good opportunity. I'm just starting to think, like, what's the movie going to be about? What are we going to see? Oh my goodness, there's so many possibilities.
so many possibilities. We don't know if it's a main character or a side character. As long as it's a fully fleshed out character that is interesting and engaging, but also is openly acknowledged to be transgender, I think it's going to be great. And considering the fact that it's Pixar, who hit far, far more than they ever miss, I think this should be great. I am quite excited about this, because if DreamWorks was doing this, I'd be excited, but slightly trepidatious. If it was Disney proper doing it, I would be filled with nothing but just dread.
Oof, yeah.
My biggest fear is that Disney would treat a transgender character the same way they treat their quote-unquote gay characters, i.e. make them just visible enough so that people can identify them as gay, but just not so visible enough that can be easily cut out of the Malaysia edit.
Exactly. I remember the whole fiasco when Frozen 2 came out, and Show Yourself was a big thing. Everyone was saying this is the queer anthem we needed, but it didn't read as anything. It was just, another Frozen song.
They are such cowards and such hypocrites. I've said this many times before. They are more than happy to throw pride parades, big pride events in their theme parks in the West, but actually acknowledging a character as gay, like actually saying the word gay or queer or LGBTQIA+ on screen, they are having none of it. They want their cake, and they don't want anyone else to eat it or even share in the cake eating. Jesus, but this comes exactly right time. This is great, and I'm really, really excited, especially seeing as this is coming after. You mentioned Frozen 2. The big thing for me, the big disappointment for me was Raya the Last Dragon. I see you, Gemma Chan's character with the gay haircut, and yet I've made my thoughts on that movie perfectly clear, so I'm not going to go on about it any fucking more. This seems awesome. Moving on. A bit of casting announcements. Emilia Clarke has been announced, as I'm sure we all inevitably thought she would be, to join the Marvel Cinematic Universe. She's going to be in one of the new Disney Plus shows coming up called Secret Invasion. I know I mentioned Event Comics earlier. That was one of the nails in that. Okay, so a bit of backstory. I love Marvel, love reading the comics. At least I used to before they started. I got event comic fatigue. There were so many of them, and I don't get like the individual comics. I usually get the trade paperbacks where it's all condensed, all the story arcs and storylines, so I get a complete picture and don't Kayleigh, you can see behind me there's a huge bookcase just chock full of books. I need that space. And so, which is also very expensive. And so when I'm constantly having to buy like Secret Invasion, Civil War, Siege, Shadowlands, all this shit, it got to be too much. So now I don't even read that many Marvel comics anymore. I mainly stick to independent stuff that I either review on here or just read in my private life. And so, and Secret Invasion was one of those ones. Ooh, the Skrulls are invading. I'm sure this will be really important for like a month or so afterwards. Then it's going to be the status quo as per usual. It pretty much it didn't affect anyone except for Norman Osborn, Luke Cage / Jessica Jones, and Jessica Drew. And that's it! Gah. So we're getting a Secret Invasion TV show, which I'm sure will be better. And Emilia Clarke is going to be in it. She'll be joining Samuel L. Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, and presumably a few other familiar people. I know that Peaky Blinders actor Kingsley Ben-Adir will be joining, as well as Olivia Colman.
Ooh, she's one of my favorites.
She's awesome. I don't want to be that guy, Kayleigh. I'm going to be that guy.
Be that guy.
I was a fan of Amelia. I was a fan of Olivia Colman before it was cool. I was watching her in Peep Show before all y'all.
Oh my goodness.
I just want to make that clear. So I know she's really popular now, deservedly so, because she is awesome, but I was watching her on Mitchell and Webb's sketch show, TV show. Just saying. I'm not a hipster about anything, red and blue 3D glasses aside, except for this. Having said that, this is going to be really cool. I don't know that much. I've not been paying a lot of attention to all the upcoming Marvel Disney Plus shows, because the last time I did that, they were going to do a new Warriors TV show, and that went fucking nowhere, so I'm refusing to get any of my hopes up, except for Miss Marvel. Looking forward to that. That's going to be great. But that's there's not really much more we can say about it other than she'll be joining it. I mean, you agree with me, right? You thought that this was inevitable, Emilia Clarke joining the MCU, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Thank goodness. It's about time we see her.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. She needs something like this after the ending to the show that shall not be named.
Oh boy. Yep. It'll be a redemption arc.
You know what I'm doing now? I realised I'm still not over the ending to Game of Thrones. So as therapy, I've started actually reading the fucking books.
Oh.
It's so much better. It's so much better than the show, even season 1. Maybe I just prefer, like... Because they can go into details. I can really get into the characters' heads and really fully explore their motivations, their thoughts and feelings, which are interesting. Slightly less so when you realise that the show aged up a lot of the characters and Daenerys Targaryen is actually 13 at the beginning of the books. That's not pleasant when some bad things happen. That's not fun at all.
Oh boy. Yeah, there's the age-old saying that like the books are always going to be better than the movie adaptations, and I hope it's correct in this turn of events, but at the same time, we just said that the Marvel comic universe in the MCU is just clearly superior in a lot of ways.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, I do like Marvel comics, I really do, and I like Marvel movies, but the Marvel movies have the advantage of being able to be a lot more focused. They don't have to constantly adhere to world-changing events. Well, actually, no, they kind of do, but they can also focus on individual stories much more cleanly, I want to say. It's very much a case of pick your poison. But that's just one of the advantages of that kind of medium, the screen medium versus the page medium. There's nothing really you can do about that. Unless you want to make a completely off-the-wall adaptation, I'm looking at you! New trailer for the MODOK TV series!
Woo!
We've been waiting for this for quite a while. I knew Patton Oswalt was going to be doing a MODOK TV series for a while, and I needed that to get over the disappointment of being denied a Deadpool TV series, but the trailer is out. MODOK is mental organism designed only for killing, not conquest. That's bad literacy. Except now he's also trying to balance, trying to take over the world with raising a family and going through a pretty nasty divorce. At this point, I would like to point out that MODOK is basically a flying head with arms and legs.
Good for him getting a wife then. I mean, of course, the whole divorce thing going on, clearly awful, but at the same time, ooh, good for him. He got a family. He's
got a family, and the trailer looks pretty goddamn cool. I highly suggest if you haven't already, Capers, go out and check it out. Another Marvel trailer. There's a lot of Marvel news for some reason. I don't know why. It just happens to be a lot of Marvel news recently. Another Marvel trailer's dropped. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Ooh, yeah, that was such a good trailer. Oh my goodness, I am so excited to see it.
I'm worried. Actually, I say that. I'm not worried. I'm trepidatious. I'm concerned. I'm not really concerned. I have no cause for being concerned, but I like, I wouldn't say a big fan, but I'm a reasonable fan of, like, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, wuxia martial arts movies. And I'm worried that this is going to be a slightly sanitized version of those movies, because those movies go all out. And that's kind of what I wanted from this movie. The trailer looks really cool. Sam Liu is kicking all kinds of ass, but I'm worried if it's going to hold itself back. And I think if any movie has no reason to hold itself back, it's Shang-Chi. Because Shang-Chi is a fucking badass.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where you've got the trailer, you've got the initial reactions. Only time will tell. Like, we just gotta see the full thing, and based on that, we'll basically, just gotta wait for the full thing to come out, I think. The trailer can only do so much for it,
Yeah, I mean, the trailer looks good. The trailer looks like an awful lot of fun. I'm glad we're finally getting expansion on the Ten Rings terrorist organization. That's been there since Iron Man. So that's going to be really cool. And also Aquafina is in there, presumably as punishment for being in Raya and the Last Dragon. This is how she makes it up to us. And it looks pretty goddamn cool. I'm excited. Almost as excited as a lot of people are, for reasons that I don't understand, but want to understand, for the debut of the new Netflix show, Shadow and Bone. Kayleigh, can you explain this to me? Why people are so hyped up for this show?
I think a part of it, and you are actually asking a perfect person for this, because I've read Six of Crows, which is kind of like a in the same universe kind of series. And the characters in that, and the storyline, are just perfect. And some of the characters actually appear in Shadow of Bone. So I think some of the excitement is seeing those characters finally on the big screen. As for the Shadow and Bone storyline, I actually have not read that series yet. So I can't tell you if there's anything super exciting there, but at the very least, it's been really cool seeing some of the characters from Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom in there.
I mean, I heard that the book series, Six of Crows included, was very popular. I never got around to reading them because, I've been busy with Game of Thrones. And then I saw the trailer for Shadow and Bone and thought, that looks okay. And I actually watched the first episode on Netflix last night. And I thought, this looks pretty cool. And I'm interested to see where it's going. I can't say I'm hooked yet, but I am intrigued. This is why I say I want to know more about why. I mean, it's got 92% or something on Rotten Tomatoes, so clearly it's going well, and presumably this means that, of course, it should be cancelled at the second season by Netflix.
Yeah, I remember being angry about that when they said it about Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, that they're not going through with the second season. I was about to strangle the Netflix team. I can't believe they did that. They left it on such a big cliffhanger.
Look Aughra in her one good eye and tell me, Netflix, that you are going to cancel. I fucking dare you. No, I mean, I've been wanting to rant about this for so long because it was so good, with so much potential to go so many different places, and they just cancelled it with nary a confirmation of another graphic novel. Because there are Dark Crystal graphic novels I want to point out. I've read them. They're pretty damn cool. I'm not happy. I'm not happy. But then, when am I happy, Kayleigh? I'll tell you what, never. So that is the news. And before we go any further, we're going to have some ads. Check them out.
And now we're pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
Who's been messing up everything?
It's been Agatha all along.
I had to get it out of the way. There. Are you happy, Keepers? Are you happy? I played the goddamn clip before we start any of this shit so we can just move on, okay? I love it the same as everyone else, but the minute it turned up at a car commercial, I was like, we need to move on, okay? It's over. It's done. Move on with your goddamn lives. Anyway, Falcon and the goddamn Winter Soldier. Yeah, so reaction to Falcon and the Winter Soldier has been, I don't want to say mixed, but it's been interesting. It's clear that this has not received the same level of universal acclaim as the aforementioned WandaVision. I think it's fucking fantastic, though.
Yeah, if anything, it's gotta be, I think... Oh, I hate to say it's my favorite, because the first Avengers movie still has a very special place in my heart, but it's up there.
Again, it's a question of focus. You can tell a much bigger, much more emotional, not much more emotional, but still very much more impactful story with 6 40-minute, hour-long episodes than you can with an hour and a half, 2.5 hour movie, just by nature of the structure alone.
Yeah, exactly. There's such a complex storyline that comes with Falcon and the Winter Soldier that it transforms at the end of it. You're in it for the story, you're in it for the characters, you get a little more time with them, really, even though it's like broken up based on week. So you're just constantly anticipating where the heroes are going to go.
Absolutely. And I mean, you mentioned the Avengers movie. I think that this series is, personally at least, is the spiritual successor to Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
Ooh, yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, Civil War was excellent in a lot of ways, I think. But
it was
at
very
the
much
same
an
time-
Avengers 2.5 movie as opposed to Captain America.
Goodness, but Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I think, honestly, it's in a good place in the timeline, especially, with the whole Flagsmashers thing being about the blip. Honestly, if they had just switched a little bit of the Flagsmashers initiative and like what they were fighting for, it actually could have probably happened a couple years earlier in the MCU timeline, I think.
Absolutely. And it's the perfect, you know what it is? It's timely in terms of the MCU, but it's also got some things to say about our own world and what's going on right now. And I was worried that it was going to be a little bit preachy, and it is a tiny, itsy, microscopically bit preachy, but it's also very impactful and relevant, and when it's not preachy, it's really, really relevant.
Absolutely.
And we're going to get into all of that episode by episode, and that's the advantage of this over WandaVision when I did that with Francisco Andrante, simply because there's less episodes at a similar length, so we've got more time to talk about the things we love, which for me starts first and foremost with Batroc the motherfucking Leaper.
Oh my goodness.
I love him. So for those of you who don't know, Batroc the Leaper is a villain from the comics. I say a villain, he is a Z-lister, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 15th stringer, whose whole thing is that he jumps about and kicks people and has a stupid mustache. And they took that character, put him in the Winter Soldier, cast him with George St. Pierre, and made him fucking awesome! How? How do you do that? But guess what? He's back! Yes! I'm very excited about it. Can you tell?
Oh, absolutely. You've got hand gestures out the window. Yep. And you just said you were full of anger. I see excitement there.
Hey, my anger and my joy is a two-sided coin. They're the same thing. That's not how we start, though. We don't start with Batroc the Leaper. We start with Sam Wilson, having been given Captain America's shield by Steve Rogers at the end of Endgame, donating it to a museum. Ooh, that's what's going on there. And it turns out it's just a bit too much for him. He feels like the shield is more Steve's thing than anything else. He feels like he can't really live up to that responsibility that's not meant for him. And so he gives it to the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian doesn't even really hold on to it for much long, because they give it to someone else. We're going to get to that. Oh, God. But that's what we get first off. Then we get Sam in Falcon gear hunting down Batroc the Leaper. He's called Georges Batroc. I don't speak French. But I'm just going to call him Batroc the Leaper. And this whole sequence is fucking awesome. I was worried about the effects, and I'm going to be honest, the effects don't hold up 100%.
I feel the sickening threat of brutal honesty, and I'm wildly uncomfortable.
But they're still great. They're still fantastic. And this whole sequence is fucking awesome.
That it is. It's a great way to introduce the series, too, with just like that initial action right away. Gets you straight into what Falcon's doing, what he's been up to, introducing Batroc and his, oh goodness, why am I forgetting this guy's name that like helps him with the reconnaissance and like gives him a phone call saying, hey, this is where Carly is.
I mean, he's barely in it. He's called Torres?
Yeah, it's probably why I forgot him so quickly. He's not really in it.
Apparently, Oh, okay, so again, Marvel Universe comics backstory. There was a point in the comics where actually both Bucky Barnes and Falcon became the new Captain America. The first time with Winter Soldier was after Captain America died, but not really. And the second time was after he turns out he was a Hydra agent, but not really. This is another reason why I don't really read comics anymore. And And then I think after that, Torres became the new Falcon. I don't know. I'm getting this knowledge secondhand. So I think that's why he's here. There's a nod to that. I don't know. He's barely in it. And whilst he seems lovely, out of all the characters in this movie, he's the one this show, it feels like a movie. That's the problem. He's the one I care about the least, is what I'm saying. So we get a really cool helicopter Falcon dogfight between Falcon and Batroc. It's really fucking cool. Sam rescues a hostage, forces Batroc down to the ground, and the day is saved. He and Joaquin bond a little bit, whilst we're introduced to a group of so-called anarchists called the Flagsmashers. Now, I will say this. The show does a pretty piss-poor job of introducing the Flagsmashers, their whole agenda. That becomes increasingly more clear as the show goes on, and it's really interesting. But, I mean, they're basically, as far as I remember, in the show, just introduced as they want to take things back to when the blip was happening. And that's it.
That's the initial introduction. Yeah, it's like really, we don't really see too much of them in the first episode either, besides the handprint with the world symbol in it either. It's just, that's what we associate them with. They want to return things to how it was before the blip, but they've got a lot more motives, and I want to say, I don't agree that, this was the perfect way to introduce them, but at the same way, it also introduces, this is how Sam Wilson and the crew see them at first, but then they discover over time that there's more to it. And we discover alongside with them through the episodes that there's more to it.
And that is a very good point. It's just, considering that they are the central focus, at least antagonist-wise, of the show, I feel like they could have had a stronger, there is at least clear introduction, other than them seeing some sort of weird offshoot of the army of Saruman the White. The hand symbol, I don't know. But we don't really have much time for that, because we've got a lovely little cameo from James Rhodes.
Right. Oh my goodness. The name blanked for a minute, because we don't really see him that often.
No, I mean, he's barely in it, but he's there. Cool, they got Don Cheadle. Give him a fucking separate movie or TV show. I think he's earned it by this point.
Oh, absolutely he has. I would watch that in a heartbeat.
But he's not in for very much long, and then we get... Oh, God. Then we finally transition over to Bucky Barnes. I love the fact that this is a grown man and we're still calling him Bucky and not James.
I think a couple characters actually do call him James throughout. I can't remember who, but his name's
no
Bucky
one we care about.
At this point. Yeah, no one we care about. His name's Bucky.
His name's Bucky, and he is still dealing. I mean, he has successfully been completely deprogrammed as the Winter Soldier, but sadly, the memories still remain, and he is in therapy for it, which I think is great. I am really glad to see that he is in. He's a superhero character that is in therapy. Because I'm really glad that as a society, we're moving past this very negative perception of therapy when it should be portrayed as a necessary and indeed important and healthy tool for mental health. He is very resistant of the therapy, but this sort of mindset is very much looked down upon and scorned, I think, by the show.
And I mean, if anybody deserves therapy, it's these superheroes that have seen so much death, so much chaos, so much violence. They literally just came back from the end of Infinity War and Endgame, where they went to space and saw half of their friends die. I think they deserve therapy at this point.
I am amazed that in all of his run of comic books, Spider-Man has never gone to therapy that I'm aware of.
He hasn't? Oh no, he deserves it the most.
He does. Yeah, Like, all of the guilt he has? Therapy. Jesus, Peter, come on. And so, but the reason why Bucky is resistant to therapy is because he thinks that his brand of therapy is what's best for him, i.e. making amends, hunting down corrupt former Hydra agents / senators, and befriending the family of his previous victims.
Yeah, oh my goodness. When you realize that he was the one who killed his son, there was like a whole scene with him doing it as the Winter Soldier. The son was completely innocent in all of that. He wasn't even involved. And yet he just got in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I think that's like a very important... It's... Goodness gracious. Bucky probably feels the worst about him, now that I think about it, because yeah, he was just truly an innocent. He wasn't a Hydra agent. He wasn't sort of aligned with any of the villains, but he just was in the wrong place. And as the Winter Soldier, he just couldn't take any witnesses. So yeah,
it brings it all back home. The idea that, because we've gotten used to seeing the Winter Soldier as just this guy kind of in the background of some of these Avenger movies that shoots people with a gun and has a metal arm. But then we're remembering, oh yeah, this guy has killed people. It wasn't his fault, but he still did it, and he has to live with those memories. It's truly, truly sad for him. I mean, you feel so sympathetic for him. Things aren't going much better for Sam either, because he drives down to his hometown in Louisiana to meet his sister, who is really struggling with her fishing boat. The community as a whole is really struggling. And then we get the bank scene.
Oh boy, the bank scene.
This is where the whole, what they're trying to say stops being preachy and starts being really effective stuff comes into play. Because, holy shit, I cannot imagine how many people have been in Sam's position who weren't superheroes, and yet he, a guy who is a card-carrying Avenger, can't stop his family's business from being just completely washed away thanks to a terrible economy and also, let's be honest, obviously and systemically racist policies.
Oh, absolutely. As the Falcon, obviously he's a trademark Avenger. He's gone around the world. He's saved lives, and he's built himself up as one of the trademark superheroes of the world. And yet his status gets him nowhere in this situation. And I think it's like a hard-hitting thing for him. He just thinks that because of this status that he can, pull the strings and get his family back on his feet. But he's just quickly proven wrong. And it's a little sad to see, but at the same time, when you apply it to the real world and people who have that power that aren't superheroes, but still can fling their money around and command people to do their bidding and do certain things. It's nice seeing him knocked down a peg, but at the same time, considering the journey we've seen him on, you just can't help but feel a little sympathetic for him, especially because he's trying to save his family.
I mean, it's very much a case of,
honey, you've got a big storm coming.
When that bank teller asked for a selfie. Remember that?
Oh boy, that grinded my gears.
Yeah, and that's the level that the writing is on. Just first episode, we get a scene like that. If that had come in the second or third episode, that'd be really cool. But first episode, right out of the gate, they're handing us a lot of stuff that shows just how much of their just living the life has impacted these two people. They're uniquely broken. They're uniquely, I don't want to say traumatized. One is definitely traumatized, Sam less so. But it's just a constant reminder that in this world of monsters, gods, and irradiated spider teenagers, these two are probably one of the most uniquely human out of all the Avengers. Because aside from a little bit of super soldier serum and a rocket pack, there's not, I mean, I was about to say there's not much special about them. There's many things that are special about them, but they've got lives. One's trying to rebuild his life. The other one's trying to get his life back on track. And the world seems almost determined to make sure that doesn't happen. And that's a very relatable thought. And it's so cool that they include that. Meanwhile, Joaquin is tracking down the Flagsmashers. There's a big demonstration going on. He puts on one of the masks, and it turns out it's less of a demonstration and more of a actual robbery. And he gets beaten up. Flagsmasher suddenly knocks away a police officer with seemingly superhuman abilities. Like, oh, he shouldn't be that strong. Does he do CrossFit? I don't think so. And it's like, what's going on there? Meanwhile, after all that's going on, Sam and Bucky, no, I think it's just Sam actually, sees a news announcement because there's a guy wearing a suspiciously patriotic uniform carrying Captain America's shield, calling himself, being announced as the new Captain America.
Boo! You suck!
Was the internet's reaction immediately.
Yep, and like knowing a little bit of the comic backstory, like it's U.S. agent. It's going to be the slightly morally gray dude that, you know, kills people, and you're not supposed to like him. And yet, at the same time, like episode 2 stuff, of course, but he's made out to be a little more sympathetic, at least in the initial episodes, as compared to, you know, when he goes on a killing spree a little bit. But yeah, I don't think you're supposed to like him anyways, despite all of the sympathy you're supposed to feel for him in the beginning.
You're absolutely right. I was slightly surprised by just how much vitriol the character got. Thankfully, the actor, what's his face, Wyatt Russell, sort of had, a lot of that wasn't directed at him, thankfully, but the character, I think just because that's how much people like Captain America as a character, when this new guy comes along, gives a little wink to the audience, says, I'm the new Captain America, instant hatred. I thought that was very interesting, especially considering he hadn't done anything yet. He just walked on stage and everyone was just like, I do not like this man one bit. How dare he? How dare he? And that was the end of the first episode.
Yeah. And I think there's also an added layer of like hatred because John Walker looks a little bit like Captain America, like Steve Rogers. He's got the blonde hair, he's got the blue eyes, he's got the nice skin, he's got the charisma, quote unquote. So it almost feels like a clone at first, and you can't just live up to Steve Rogers' name that quickly. You've got to prove it.
I mean, and as we learn in episode 2, The Star-Spangled Man, a lot of it does appear to be very uniquely crafted, very propaganda-y. I mean, for God's sake, he comes out, makes a debut on a football field while like fireworks and linemen and cheerleaders are going. Like, it's this uniquely American kind of performative patriotism that I see a lot that we just don't have over here in the UK. Because, yeah, we don't invite soldiers onto football fields or rugby fields with, you know, big bands in the middle playing like Jerusalem. We don't do that over here. And I see that over America so much. It's very bizarre, very alien, and very, very, very crafted, you know?
Mm-hmm. I can say with certainty, like, American over here, of course, the instances that I've at least seen of soldiers going out into football fields is like a tearful reuniting with their family, like a surprise almost. But this seems like they sit John Walker down, the interviewer, like, sits him down and she starts going on about like his awards and his medals and his achievements, and it's just like, dude, that's not really a thing, and it just feels so weird and out of place.
Yeah, I remember once, because I'm from an Air Force family. I've spoken about this in the show. And I used to live in this place called Carterton in Oxfordshire, which is right next to RAF Prize Norton, where dead soldiers from Afghanistan were repatriated back into the country. And so, at least from an Air Force perspective, I have sort of an inkling into that sort of culture, that sort of society, and that sort of mindset. And I've had on occasion people, not from other countries, from America, telling me thank you for your family's, not mine obviously, but my family's service. And no one from the UK says that. Not a single person ever thanks a service person for their service in the UK. It's not that because we're ungrateful, because we have many national holidays dedicated to both people actively serving, people who used to serve, and of course the glorious fallen. But this is a weird tangent to go on, I know, but it's impossible to ignore in this show because it sort of glorifies everything that's wrong with the perception of the military. And it stands such stark contrast to how Steve Rogers became Captain America.
Yeah, I'm starting to think about, like, I'm not sure if you're, like, an avid YouTube watcher or anything, but some of the ads that I get a lot of the time are, like, ads for joining the military service, whether it's the Navy, whether it's Air Force, whether it's just, the flat-out Army. And they glorify it into being like, you're doing a service for your country. You're going to be out on the field. You're going to be doing amazing things out there. You're going to be honored as a hero. And just at the same time, it's so glorified at the same time.
That's so interesting that you say that, because we have ads over here for joining the military, the Army and the Air Force and the Navy. But they, again, I haven't seen those ads you're talking about, but they seem very different over here because a lot of the ads over here are centered around personal growth and development, career advancement, opportunities for you. Not so much about serving your country, so much as doing yourself a service. But they're also portrayed as very, very serious. A lot of the time, they actually look quite unpleasant to look at, but they make it clear that it's hard, it's a big responsibility, and only certain kinds of people should really even consider it as a career. It involves lots of people, working very hard, like running whilst breathing heavy. It shows the sort of training you go through, shows you being shouted at by commanding officers, and even shows people, and obviously staged, but in military engagements, oftentimes when they do ads for the Royal Marines, it shows enemy combatants looking around kind of, oh, what's going on? What's going on? Before being dragged into the bushes by the Royal Marines. And it's just like, do you have what it takes? Think join Marines or something like that. And it's very serious and very, very gritty almost. It's, oddly enough, your ads seem I don't know, not your ads specifically, but American ads seem sort of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and our ads seems almost like the DC Extended Universe.
That is a very good way of putting it. Now that I think about it, oh my goodness.
It's very. I've got to look that up on YouTube, and you've got to look up our ones because just talking about it, they seem nice and day. But anyway, so John Walker, as he is known. Turns out is a decorated army person. He must be a captain, right?
I think captain. Yeah, he's got at least 3 medals of honor. I think he was like, quote unquote, the first person to receive that many. I think he served in Afghanistan, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, probably. And I think that's so interesting because, again, Steve Rogers, no medals, just a skinny kid from Brooklyn. But it was his spirit and his personality that helped him become Captain America. And I do not find it at all coincidental that the show portrays the American government, the American military, thinking that the best person to replace him is someone who just happens to have a lot of medals. Not that he didn't earn those medals, but still. Thankfully, however, he has got a friend to keep him in check, Lamar Hoskins, played by that guy that I've seen in so many things, but cannot remember his name.
Ooh, I can't remember it either. I just know him as Hoskins.
Clay Bennett? I don't think I'm pronouncing that name at all, but he's been in a ton of things, and he's very good in this show. And what I like about it is, it was so easy for the show to immediately villainize Walker and just say, oh, he's a scumbag, and he's not really what America's all about. But no, he seems like a pretty decent guy, just not necessarily what Captain America should be. And a lot of people seem to agree with that, most notably Sam and Bucky. Bucky, indeed, immediately confronts Sam about giving up the shield to the government. It sounds like, I didn't give up the shield to the government, I gave it to the Smithsonian. They gave it to the fucking government, apparently, which is it's so interesting. And meanwhile, he says, "Okay, look, I'm tracking down these flag smasher people." I don't think he offers to come with, but Bucky pretty much invites himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then see, in the previous episode, we'd had them both not really meet up
on their own. Yeah.
Then they come back together in this episode, and immediately the banter starts.
It's like they never separated. It's amazing.
Oh God! They just immediately they start hanging on each other like an old married couple, and I fucking am here for it. It's so funny. It's so oddly not endearing. It's very much a case of
Love knows no gender!
I love it. I'm here for it. It's awesome. And so they bicker and they fight whilst they track the Flagsmashers, which leads to the classic fight on top of two lorries.
Yep, that was intense. I think Bucky ended up at the bottom of one of them, and Falcon had to swoop in under and save him after a nice little "I hate you" from Bucky.
That's another thing, actually. They call back to many of their classic lines from Civil War. I think there's a thing in a later episode where they do the whole, "Can you move your seat up?" No. But they've reversed.
Yeah.
I can't remember what order it was. But it's little things like that. I love it. It's an example of this being very much almost like a buddy comedy, which I think really works in his favor, because these are two perfect characters for a buddy comedy.
Yeah, it's a buddy comedy, just sprinkle some more trauma in there. Then you got it.
But all the bickering and bantering has to wait, because suddenly they're joined by Walker and Hoskins. And there's like, "Hey, need a hand?"
Oh, boy. It's so weird, right? Because John Walker, immediately is super proficient with the shield, and it just makes you hate him even more. It's just like, how are you so good at throwing the shield already? You, had it for maybe a couple days at this point. You've been Captain America for, a week.
Yeah, exactly. It's really fucking annoying. And they end up, Bucky and I'm very sorry, but my front door is ringing, so I'm just going to go and quickly get that. 1 second. Sorry about that.
Yeah, go for it. Mention the Flagsmashers yet.
So, they're fighting the Flagsmashers on top of the lorry, and Bucky and Sam get knocked off, much to their chagrin. And the Flagsmashers get away. Then Walker comes up in a Jeep and offers them a ride.
Oh boy, that gets a very nice little scene where they're just in the back of the Jeep. They're exchanging stories, they're exchanging tension. That's another thing. Hoskins and Walker are kind of like clones almost. I mentioned already that Walker looks a lot like Steve Rogers, right? With the blonde hair, blue eyes, nice skin. But Hoskins also kind of seems like a clone of Falcon at one point. Because, dark skin, buddy comedy thing going on, best friends. So it's just an added layer. It keeps stacking up, this hatred of Walker.
I mean, Battlestar, as he's known, which is a stupid name.
That's a stupid name.
Battlestar is a character in the comics. I don't know if he has any relation to US Agent. But, yeah, it is an interesting duality. And again, it helps that Battlestar and Walker get on and are genuinely friends. It would be so easy to make Walker a complete and utter arsehole, but no, he's a fully fleshed out character. He's human. And even though Falcon and Winter Soldier clearly do not like him, for good reason, you can't ignore that. And then we get a little bit of exposition about this new thing called the Global Repatriation Council. Now, again, this does not get very well explained, but I think we should just say what their whole deal is. So, basically, after people returned to the blip, it caused a bit of a stink, because while everyone was dusted away, all the people who were left suddenly found themselves like, uh-oh, our populations have been cut in half, and there's a bunch of people just lost to the wind. Hey, why didn't you come over here and help rebuild our community, and then you'll be part of that community? And all these other people were like, okay, great. 5 years later, boom, everyone comes back. So now they're pushing those people out so they can let the old people back in. I'm condensing and summarizing a lot, but that's basically the whole deal. And that's what the Flagsmashers are opposed to, because they preferred it when we all acted like we were one big global community. And now the borders have essentially come back up and people have been forced out, becoming refugees again. They're really not happy. And I think this is a fantastic plot point, because you can draw parallels to our own world, sure, but this feels like something that is a unique problem to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is a genuine consequence of what would happen if everyone, like half the population of Earth, disappeared and then suddenly came back. This makes a lot of sense.
It does, especially because in the 5 years, it's 5 years of people like adjusting to the fact that the population has been cut in half. They've got to make lives for themselves. They go to all different places. They build families. They build their own new lives and try to like recuperate from what happened. And then suddenly, snap, again, they're all back. And your whole life is thrown into chaos, basically. So there's this whole period of just like, now you got to adjust again. Congratulations.
And as much as Sam and Bucky stand in opposition to that, they don't want to work with Walker and Battlestar because they view them, quite rightly, as puppets of the US government. So they say a not so tearful goodbye. And what happens next? Oh, yeah, so then we get a bit more of a focus on the Flagsmashers themselves, led by Carly Morgenthau, played by Erin Kellyman, best known as that person from the very end of the Solo movie that no one cared about. Oh my god, she took off her helmet and was revealed to be a lady! Oh my gosh, what a dramatic twist! It's almost as exciting as in the 80s when we found out that Samus Aran was a lady! Oh wait, that was literally decades ago and no one gives a shit anymore! Wake the fuck up, Ron Howard! Sorry, this does bring up some stuff. But that's nothing against this actor, who is very good.
Mm-hmm.
She was. What I like about it is she brought a uniquely British sort of acting to this role, in that it was not subdued necessarily, but very authentic and very naturalistic. Aside from the occasional, not long-winded, but definitely short-winded monologue.
Yeah, I think it was super interesting. Like, she's British and is leading them, but there's also a ton of other nationalities amongst the ranks. We get at least one Australian who was super fun.
Was he Australian? I thought it was New Zealand.
New Zealand? Either way, he had like that kind of Australian accent, I think. Maybe I'm just mixing up my accents at this point.
I'm in no position to determine people's accents, Jesus. But you're absolutely right. And it's interesting because it's people from all around the world that have been brought into this. It's called a terrorist organization. In fairness, they kind of live up to that over the course of the show. But it's interesting because they've all been wronged. They all feel like society was getting to the point where it might have actually been okay when we break down borders. But it's not. They've been shunted aside and they feel disenfranchised and let down by various governments who are now determined to shove them aside now that they have no use for them. This is where we get a lot of the preachiness, especially from Carly, but you understand them. You sympathize with them. You can see where they're coming from. That doesn't mean we condone their actions, but this is the mark of a great antagonist. You completely sympathize with them. And that's what a lot of people have commented on right up until the end. I've seen a lot of people saying that a big problem with Marvel's villains is that they're sympathetic right up until the end. And that's not without merit, but it's also I think that's on purpose. I think it's to show that you can have the best of intentions and you can have a very sympathetic background, but it's what you do. You know, it's your actions that define you, not the wrongs that have been committed against you. And
yeah, exactly.
I think that's important to remember.
Mm-hmm. I think at this point, like, what I think I really adore about the Flagsmashers in general is that Carly, like, in the beginning, she's really sympathetic. You empathize with the cause. And over the course of the episodes, she grows increasingly desperate. And I think that desperation really plays into her actions as a whole and how she, like, decides, you know, it's going to be okay to kill a couple people in order to get this message across. And finally ends with, I will die, but the movement will continue. It's not me at this point leading them. It's everybody working together. So just that transition over time. Yeah.
It's the progression from activist to extremist. Mm-hmm. We're skipping ahead a little bit, but by the end, it's very much a case of
I've no more fucks to give, the more fucks I've tried to get. I'm over my fuck budget, and I'm now in fucking debt.
She's completely lost it, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Moving on. Sam is understandably frustrated by everything that's happened, as is Bucky. So Bucky brings him to Baltimore, to the home of one Isaiah Bradley. Oh my god, I was so jazzed when I saw that they were going to introduce this character. Because we're first introduced to his, is it his nephew, his grandson?
I think it's nephew, but I'm not sure.
No, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he's the grandson.
Okay.
Okay, so it's his grandson Eli, who, if you read it in the comics, will know becomes the one of, I think the very first, because there's been several apparently, teen superhero known as Patriot, who was fucking awesome. And his whole deal was that his grandfather, Isaiah Bradley, was apparently the first Captain America. But something went wrong with the super soldier serum, or they shoved him aside for the white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Steve Rogers, and thus he spent a lot of time caring for his not quite comatose, but definitely fucked
not
up.
In it. Mm-hmm.
Not entirely in it. Grandfather. They do a similar sort of thing in this show. In this one, he's definitely still traumatized because Isaiah has been experimented on and abused by the US government, which hits really close to home when you remember the fact that the US government has done this to black people repeatedly. I'm not making this up. This isn't a conspiracy theory. We know that black people in recent living memory have been medically and scientifically experimented on by the government, sometimes without their knowledge, and all of the time without their consent.
Mm-hmm. Man, it really hits
Shit.
close. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Shit.
Shit. It's because so Bucky found out about Isaiah, brings Sam there, and Isaiah basically breaks down and says that he was in prison for about 30 years, experimented on by the US government, and just basically abused and abandoned by the government, and all these horrible things are happening, and now he's had to be looked after by his grandson, and Sam is furious. The idea that there's a black Captain American out there that no one acknowledges, that barely anyone knows about, and that he didn't know about, and apparently even Steve didn't know about. Did Steve know about it?
Steve did not. I think Bucky only knew because he got into a fight with Isaiah Bradley at one point, and Isaiah Bradley kicked his ass. But that was way back in Winter Soldier days, I think.
Yeah, I think that was during the Korean War, apparently. And yeah, it's the whole scene, every scene, because he appears later. Every scene with Isaiah Bradley is a true gut punch. The actor that plays him, just looking up his actor's name now, Carl Lumbly, does a fantastic job as this cynical, bitter, but with good reason, broken man who is traumatized by what happened to him after he tried to step up and serve his country. His country just abused him, and he does such a magnificent job of it, and it's truly hard to watch at some point. And it's immediately followed by Sam being racially profiled by the police. This show pulls no punches.
Yep, and he has to pull out the I'm Falcon card again, and of course that's when the police recognize him, like, oh, cool, hey, nice to see you, Falcon.
Do you know what this reminds me of? This I watched so recently, to my great shame, I forgot his name, but a lieutenant in the US Army got pulled over and pepper sprayed by the police when they tried to arrest him. You remember this? It was on the news recently over there?
I know the event you're talking about, but unfortunately, also to my great shame, I am forgetting the name.
Well, because there's so many examples of that sort of thing happening now that's made the news. Indeed, people that have been killed whilst the George Floyd trial was going on. But what reminded me about that was that afterwards, after they had pepper sprayed him, shouted him, said to him that he should be afraid for his life, they handcuffed him, put him back in a police car, and then once they confirmed that they had no reason to arrest him, just very calmly, very chummily said, okay, look, sorry this happened. I get why you pulled over when you did. It's fine, don't worry about it. I wouldn't, pursue any charges against us because, we could fuck up your ear. But if you want to do that, that's fine. I remember because it all got videotaped because they released the cam footage. And it was truly horrifying to see these police officers go from shouting and threatening this man's life to acting like they're his best friend. Just like that. And then we see that in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They immediately racially profile him the second they see him and act threatening. But as soon as they find out he's Falcon, soon as like, oh, hey, buddy. I'm so full of white privilege that I'll never know what that's like, but that's fucking scary to me.
Oh, absolutely. It is terrifying. And it's so terrifying to think that people go through this every day, have gone through it every year, every decade. And nobody, I don't think anybody in this world has the kind of liberty that in the Marvel Universe Falcon would have by just saying, I'm the Falcon. I've saved lives. There are normal people out there that are going through this exact same thing, and they don't have that sort of privilege. They're just average, everyday people who have done nothing wrong in their lives, and yet this still happens to them.
I mean, that lieutenant we talk about was in military fatigues. He was wearing his uniform, and they still threatened him and profiled him. I don't know who you have to be in our own world in order to not be racially profiled. It's utterly insane and scary, and that's the level that this writing is on, that it can evoke that sort of thing, even though that event in question happened after that episode aired. So it's almost a case of life imitating art in the worst way possible. It's truly awful. Mm-hmm. But then discovers, ironically, Bucky is the one that gets arrested because he hasn't been keeping up with his court-mandated therapy. So they go to the police station, and his therapist, Christina Rayner, turns up and basically puts them both in a therapy session. We go from kind of a traumatic event to a very funny event.
Not to mention, Walker was the one that busted him out. He paid the bail for Bucky, I think. Because he was there, in the background, just feeling like, hi. Oh, yeah.
He's an asshole.
I'm just going to constantly play that clip over and over again. Jeez,
Walker deserves it.
And so she forces them to open up a little bit. And, Sam talks about how he felt like he couldn't hold onto the shield. Bucky talks about how he should have held onto the shield. They go back and forth. And they decide that, okay, you know what? We just got to team up, take down the Flagsmashers. We're not going to do it with Walker. But they realize that in order to take them down, they're going to need a little bit of help. They go to get Zemo.
God, that was so good. Just busting the whole sequence, busting him out of prison was incredibly hilarious.
This is in episode 3, Power Broker. So they visit him in his prison cell, and they know they can rely on him to take them down because they know that the Flagsmashers have become super soldiers, and they know that Zemo hates super soldiers. Zemo is one of the most fascinating villains the MCU has ever made because, again, you could see where he's coming from. He's just, brutal in his tactics. And this show does a great job of expanding upon his mindset, his worldview, and his personality. And Daniel Bruhl, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
I think so.
He eats up this role so much. He's one of those actors that mainly does very serious roles, and his role in this is very serious. And yet you see the serious character do the occasional slightly funny thing. He talks about Marvin Gaye, about how he encapsulated the Black American experience, and Sam's just staring at him like, what the fuck? I hate that you know that, but he's right. It's so funny, and yet his performance does not change from scene to scene. It's the same kind of serious nature that he always is. It's a uniquely human portrayal of someone who's clearly a sociopath.
Oh, absolutely. And to think, if anything had gone differently, the end of Civil War had him, sitting down, Black Panther comes up, and Zemo almost kills himself. And to think, if it had gone a different way, we wouldn't have had Zemo in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But now that he's here, yeah.
I don't want to imagine a world, but just every time I see this guy, where he's in a jail cell or he's wandering around in his big fur-lined cloak, I'm like, huzzah, a man of... Oh, the clip didn't play properly. I'll try that again. Huzzah, a man of quality. There we go. Jesus. He's so cool. And because he acts like he's always in control. He never acts unnerved or shaken. He acts like everything's going exactly like he wants, especially when Sam and Bucky break him out of prison.
Yep. Oh my goodness. That was such an amazing scene. Him just coming down dressed in the security guard outfit being like, hey, I'm here. And Sam immediately going, whoa. Hey, wait a minute. You're not supposed to be here.
He is very concerned about having him along, but is like, okay, fine, but I'm keeping my eye on you. And Zemo tells him about how he'd been hunting down Hydra people who had worked on various super soldier serums. And then he says, oh, I got chills when he said this. We need to go to Madripoor. Because I love it when the Marvel Cinematic Universe alludes to locations that were unique to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because Madripoor is not a place that exists in the real world. It's a place that Wolverine hung out in a lot. And it's in Indonesia. And it's basically a Marvel's equivalent of a hive of scum and villainy. It's awesome. And we go there. We go to Madripoor, which is so cool. That's what I love about shows like this, is that they have their own unique stories and characters that focus on that are maybe distinct from their comic book counterparts, but they include references and locations and characters and locales that just awaken the fanboy in me. It's like, it's fun.
Yeah, in Madripoor, they develop the characters, they develop the story, but they also develop the world through locations like this. Madripoor is a criminal hotspot. It's a city that's full of scumbags. It's full of people who are probably wanted by multiple governments.
Oh my god, yeah, Swindon!
Yeah, it's so cool being there. It's so atmospheric. It just feels like it could be a real place in the world if you just tweaked it a little bit.
Yeah, it fleshes out, because this is the one thing I've, to my reluctance, have always admired about the DC universe, because even though it has real locations like Chicago and New York, it also has places like Gotham and Metropolis and Coast City, and that helps flesh out the world, as you say. So it's really cool that they include examples of that in here. Because previously, what we had? We had Wakanda, Sokovia. That's basically it.
I think that's it.
Yeah. So they excuse me. They go to Madripoor via Zemo's private plane, and it's revealed that Zemo is a member of Eastern European aristocracy.
Honestly, it shouldn't even come as that big a surprise. He was showing off his car collection not even 5 minutes beforehand. And he's got a butler, a personal butler, that was with them on the plane.
Yeah,
he's got money. He's showing it off.
Oh my god, he's this universe's equivalent of Batman.
Oh my goodness, he's got more of a punchable face, but yeah.
Well, I don't know, some Batmen, pretty punchable faces. But anyway, they go to Madripoor, and it's revealed that they have to contact the Power Broker, and they pose as criminal underlings, Zemo as himself, Winter Soldier as Winter Soldier, and Sam as, what do they call it, Smiling Tiger?
Yeah, Smiling Tiger. He was wearing that like fancy suit, and apparently he looked similar to the real Smiling Tiger, so perfect disguise.
I don't know why Sam was complaining. He looked pretty fetch in that suit. I thought it looked pretty cool.
It did. Oh my goodness. Maybe he's just not used to it compared to, his usual Falcon getup.
Maybe. And so they end up getting into a bit of a confrontation with some of the Power Broker's minions, and eventually find out that this doctor called Wilfred Nagel, which is a name that seems familiar to me, but I can't remember where that's from, is responsible for this new batch of super soldier serum. And this was in fact commissioned by the Power Broker. And they're about to follow us up when they get called by Sam's sister, Sarah, blows their identity, big bar fight, it's awesome. But then, in the midst of the bar fight, they run into Sharon Carter, Agent 13. Ooh!
Yeah, it's so good seeing her again. We were so concerned about where she went after those 2 years where they were running from the law thanks to, stealing the shield. Hey, she ended up in Criminal Central. So, she made a life for herself.
Yeah, as you say, she's been on the run. She really wants a pardon from the government because her entire life has been held on hold. And she's stuck down in Madripoor. It's not fun for anyone. So... But it's revealed that she's got a lot of contacts, she's put down roots in Madripoor, and we don't see who the Power Broker actually is. I wonder who the Power Broker might be. They play this whole thing throughout the whole rest of the show, thinking that we don't think that she's obviously the Power Broker. But she's obviously the Power Broker!
Yeah, they even sneak a bunch of little scenes in where she's sneakily on her phone talking to people and just getting into a car. It's so obvious. They don't do that stellar a job of hiding it, but it still comes as a shock somehow.
I don't know, it didn't come as a shock to me at all. It was not very much a case of
surprise, motherfucker.
It's more a case of obviously, motherfucker. Obviously. I don't know. I thought that was one of the elements that should have either just introduced earlier or handled in a much better way. But anyway, she invites them all back to her pad and basically gives them a location to, start finding this guy and all the super soldier serum. And what a shock, it's down at the docks. I think a superhero show / movie would feel naked if it didn't have at least one scene down at the docks. And then we finally get to see Zemo in his iconic purple mask. I don't know why he has it. He barely has it on, but I'm glad I got to saw it. It was awesome.
Yeah, especially with still his fur coat. He just looked like a badass. He didn't keep the mask on for terribly long, but it was still very good seeing him kick ass and take names.
Again, we have to remember, he doesn't have a jetpack. He doesn't have super soldier serum. He just knows how to shoot people. I kind of want a show just about him.
That would be awesome. He's in the raft. Like, there's spoilers for what happens, but he's in the raft now. I wonder if there's a way he could get out. Probably not, since he's in the middle of the ocean now, but hey, he's a clever little dude. Maybe.
Maybe. Considering that he's alive, I doubt this is the last we will see of Zemo.
Oh, I doubt it. Yeah.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves. They have a big fight at the docks, and they discover hidden inside one of the crates is Nagel's secret laboratory. And they interrogate him. It's just like, okay, what's going on here? And he says like he was recruited by Hydra to create the super soldier serum, but once Hydra collapsed, he used the super soldier serum to no, what was happening? No. What happened was goodbye Hydra. Then the blip happened. That's what happened. And when he came back, Hydra was completely gone. It was just like, oh, what are we going to do here? And then went to the power broker, hired him, created super soldier serum, and he created loads of vials of super soldier serum. But here's the thing: Morgenthau then stole them. She was working for the power broker, but then she betrayed the power broker, stole them, and ran off. And upon hearing all this information, Zemo shoots him dead.
Yep, I think Carly got away with at least, 20 super soldier serums. So you would at least know that there's 20 super soldiers out there in the world, maybe minus like 1 or 2, because I think there was like a exploding plane scene later on where one of them sacrifices himself. But hey, that's that's a tiny thing.
I think that happened in the previous episode. Yeah. Nearly 20 super soldiers out there, and Zemo is not keen to make us forget that he wants all the super soldiers dead. That's what I love about this guy. His motivation is rock solid, simple. I want to kill super soldiers, and people still act surprised when he does that. It's just what do you expect? I've made my thoughts and feelings about this very clear, guys. At this point, it's your own fault.
Yeah, it's their own fault for inviting him into the guy's laboratory where he is making the super soldier serums to give to super soldiers, and just shoot the source. That's basically why he invited himself along. He knew what he was going to do, and nobody else caught on. Yeah.
I mean, is the guy who we know has already killed a bunch of super soldiers going to kill the guy who created a bunch of super soldier serums? Nah. Oh, whoops, he did just that. Jeez.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Yeah, it's... Jeez. But anyway, while that's going on, back in Europe, Morgenthau mourns the death of her foster, adoptive, biological mum? I don't know. At a refugee camp for all the people who've been displaced by all the people coming back from the blip. And this is where we start getting a lot more focus on them, their motivations, who they are as people. And it's really interesting until they start repeating themselves a little bit by the 5th episode. But like I said, there's only 6 episodes, so it's not too egregious. But then we do get to see them blow up a building full of people.
Yeah, that's exciting. And honestly, like, okay, you mentioned the relationship between Carly and, like, I think it was an adoptive mother figure, Donya, her name was.
Yeah.
I wish we saw more of that, because it kind of just goes in like, yep, Donya's here, and nope, now she's dead, thanks tuberculosis, and just... There's nothing really there to sympathize about because it's so sudden. So it's just like, I wish Donya was there more, that we got to like know her as a person a little bit.
Yeah, because again, there's only 6 episodes, but why should we care about this person that we know virtually nothing about, haven't seen one interaction between her and any of the main characters? It could have been better.
She gets no lines, she just dies on screen and we go to her funeral. So it's just like, what are you... I don't care about you that much. I just care about the people who are getting developed. So it's like...
So after that, Sam, Bucky, and Zemo also go to Europe to hunt down the Flagsmashers. But then Bucky sees a bunch of little silver balls scattered around the place, turns around a corner. Who should be there but Ayo, played by Florence Kasumba. Holy shit, yes!
Yes. Oh my goodness. When I first saw that episode at the very end, I was just like, yes, we get to see more of the Dora Milaje. And it's so like, yes, thank you. There's absolute queens here to serve.
Oh god, I mean, it's so cool to see the Dora Milaje again. And I knew we probably wouldn't get Okoye in here, but we still got to see Florence Kasumba, and it's awesome because again, it's cool to see another confirmed gay character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's always nice. And it was also interesting because Bucky is sort of an intro to seeing more of Wakanda. Do you know what we need? We need a Wakanda TV series. I know they're working on. I don't know what's going on with the latest Black Panther. Every single bit of news I hear about that movie seems to contradict the previous bit of news. So I'm just not going to comment. But I would really like to see a Wakanda TV show just showing the world. I doubt it. It would work. It would absolutely 100% work. But I doubt they greenlight that because Wakanda as a society, works. I'm not saying it's a perfect society, but it works. So there's not a lot of, with the possible exception of, conflict between the different tribes, there's not a lot of conflict going on. So it would be kind of just like a slice of life sort of thing. Imagine that, just a sitcom featuring just characters from Wakanda. Not even like the royal family, just people living in Wakanda. Because I want to know more about that country and that society and how they work and how they live. Because it's so cool.
Yeah, I think you're a fan of Avatar, now that I think about it. Last Airbender. The episode with the episode where they do like the little mini stories focusing on each of the characters. Like they have Katara and Toph at one point. They've got Iroh and Leaves from the Vine. What if they did that?
Falling so slow.
I'm sorry to bring the tears, but I was just thinking of that episode. What if they did something similar to that, where they had like little itty bitty stories going on with civilians and like the daily struggles?
Absolutely.
That could be a cool setup.
Tales of Wakanda. Yeah, that would be really cool. Even that was just like a special, just like a one-off, hour-long, 2-hour-long special, just something like that. That would be really cool. Make it like a YouTube thing or something. Yeah. I don't know. Of all the things Marvel do, like if they include a bunch of like Tom Holland and a bunch of car ads, they can, do something for this. I think that would be really cool. God damn, are my feelings about Avatar so clear and transparent at this point? The people I've never met before? Because this is the first time Kayleigh and I are talking, and she already knows that I'm an Avatar fan. Jesus, I know I talk about it on the show, but god damn, I'm so fucking transparent. I'm a little bit ashamed. Anyway.
No, don't be. Avatar is like the greatest show ever. I only just got to watch it, like, I want to say a year ago. It was not a part of my childhood, and I wish it was, because it's so fantastic. There's so much to love about it.
Same. I watched it when I was in university. I actually got through like half of the first season, stopped for a little bit, and then picked it up later. And I wish it was, I think, was I a bit too old? When did it first air?
2000 something, I think.
2000.
I want to say 5, 4. It was early-ish.
5, 4. So I was in secondary school by that point. I would have been about 12, 13. So I guess I could have watched it, but I think it might have come a bit after that in the UK, because I don't know if it was aired concurrently on BBC or one of the other channels we have. Got like 5 channels. We might maybe even get a 6th one day. Who knows? Look at us. And so it just kind of missed me. It kind of passed me by, like a lot of American stuff did at the time, because we got our own programs. Fuck you. Anyway, we're not going to talk about Avatar. We're talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Anyway, next episode, the whole world is watching. Okay, we get it, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You saw that one Aaron Sorkin movie. We get it. Jesus. Anyway, we get a flashback to Bucky in Wakanda, hair extensions and all. Is it Ayo? Is it pronounced Ayo? Because that just seems like a weird sort of douchey greeting. Ayo!
I mean, in my head, I say Ayo, just to distinguish it. So I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation, but it's the one I've been going with for all this time.
I have been unable to pronounce the vast majority of names in the whole of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so I don't expect to start now. Io, I'm going to take your lead on this. Io was sort of became his very first therapist, actually, before Dr. Rayner. She helped unprogram him from all of Hydra's stuff about the Winter Soldier, and it's so fascinating to see. We just say Sebastian Stan is a fucking phenomenal actor. He needs to be in more things because you really see how the weight of this invisible thing hangs on him. This idea of being the Winter Soldier, knowing that if someone just says a couple of words to him, he'll be an unstoppable killing machine. And he's so scared of himself. And that to see that burden lifted from him, both he and Florence Kasumba do a fantastic job in the opening scenes of this episode.
Yeah, it is a very... when I first watched it, it like pulled at my heart in a way that it hadn't before, because I don't think we've seen or heard anything in past movies or films that Bucky was able to overcome it by going to Wakanda and speaking with Io. So now seeing it in the flesh, how he was able to overcome it, is just like, oh my goodness, we've been waiting for this for a while, and now you've finally done it, and we're rooting for you, Bucky.
Yeah, it's so cool. Honestly, I saw a trailer recently for a movie, I think it's called Monday, featuring Sebastian Stan, that's not related to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but the only other thing outside of Marvel that I've seen him in is this one episode of Law and Order, and that's it. That's when he was like a kid. Everyone's been in fucking Law and Order. Fucking everyone. Anyway, so back in the present day, Io basically says, hey, you freed Zemo, the guy that killed our former king. That's not cool.
We're here to arrest him. Bring him back.
It's very much a case of, but if we're not going to do it, you're going to fucking do it. And he's like, okay, look. We need some time to help figure out this thing with super soldiers, and then we'll give him straight back. She's like, okay, 8 hours. And then she leaves like a fucking badass.
Yeah, not even like a full 24 hours. She's like 8. Cut it in third. You get 8 hours.
Do you know what I love about the Dora Milaje? It's very rare that they actually put on like disguises. They just wear the traditional uniforms out in the world. That is so cool. I really like that. And they're just a bit like ninjas. Actually, that's what the Wakanda show should be about. The Dora Milaje, just like completely new Dora Milaje characters that go around the world, or around Wakanda even, getting shit done. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Marvel, I'm giving you free ideas here. Use them. I won't take royalties. Anyway. He goes to the flat where they're staying and informs them of how the Wakandas are there, and basically says, okay, we've got to get a move on this. And I just love the conversations they all have with each other. I really like Zemo's comments on Steve Rogers, how he thought he was a genuinely good guy, but the world doesn't need more people, like him. And it's so interesting because this is a guy who has murdered people and done horrible things, but he's not. No, he is a sociopath, but he justifies it, and he has such a unique viewpoint that just fleshes out the character so much. I've got to stop. We've still got 3 episodes to go. Jesus, we need to get a move on. So they he basically says, okay, look, there's no point trying to appeal to the Flagsmashers' better nature because they're terrorists now. They're terrorists, there's no point. But Sam's like, you know what? I want to try. And what a surprise, Walker agrees with Zemo. He's like, nope, this is not going to go well at all. But while they're all doing that, they go to the refugee camp to try and find out where Carly is. Sam and Bucky do a terrible job. Zemo just offers some sweets to some kids and instantly gets the information. It would be funny if it didn't make both Sam and Bucky, 2 trained soldiers that have, links to espionage, look like amateur hour. They just go around just like, hello, do you know anything about Carly Morgenthau? Like shouting at people. It's, not to be insulting, it's very American.
Oh, yep. Just waltz right in and expect answers, and everybody else is just like, okay, gonna close the door now.
But meanwhile, Zemo just offers them some sweets and instantly gets the information. And also, it reminds you that Zemo was a father. And apparently a very attentive father, a very loving father. That's part of the reason why he is the way he is, because he lost his family in Sokovia. And again, I'm not going to spend this whole time gushing on Zemo, especially when I just realized now that we didn't even fucking talking about the Zemo dance scene!
Oh my god, we missed it! We just passed right over his little wolf.
I am ashamed of myself! Oh! No, because here's the thing. We just see a little scene of Zemo giving a little bit of fist bump in the club, and Madripoor just like, oh yeah. And apparently the internet fell in love with this, so Marvel, on their YouTube page, released an hour-long cut of Zemo dancing.
Good. We did Diddy along with him.
Apparently people are asking Daniel Bruhl, like, interviews were asking questions like, Zemo dancing, what's up with that? And he was like, oh yeah, we did like several takes of me like dancing because in my mind, I like ad-libbed this, that Zemo is out of prison for the first time, he wants to let his hair down, so he has himself a little bit of a dance. And it's just like, that's not even in the script, Daniel Bruhl just made that up, and it's amazing!
God, some of the improvisation in the Marvel movies is just stellar. Where would this series be without Zemo's little dance scene?
And you might be wondering, is anyone really going to watch an hour-long cut of Zemo dancing over and over again? I fucking did. I did that. Why haven't you? It's so good. Anyway, that's like 2 episodes ago. Shit. This episode... they get some information, but Zemo isn't exactly forthcoming with that information for Sam and Bucky, and basically says, "Look, I know you're going to turn on me once we reach Morgenthau, so I got to have myself a little bit of leverage." Sam calls Sharon Carter, who keeps they just keep calling her throughout the whole show. They just keep calling her constantly. Hey, you got more information? Oh yeah, sure, I got plenty of information. It's not like I'm the power broker or anything. Beating us over the head with that, Jesus. And apparently she has access to satellites. Sure. And they basically managed to track down Morgenthau. And it's the place where they stashed a bunch of super soldier serum because they were hanging around there because of her mum's funeral. I don't know. What you need to know is they run into John Walker and Battlestar. And it's like, okay, look, just give us a minute to talk her down. We'll see how things go. Walker's like, okay. And immediately just goes like, no, this is wrong. This is bad. It's. I like Wyatt. What's his face? Wyatt Russell. Kurt Russell's son, right?
I don't know.
I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, now you've got me curious.
Just because if so, that means like both of them have been in separate Marvel movies. Yep, Kurt Russell is the father of Wyatt. So Ego the Living Planet is the father of US Agent. That's canon now.
The Marvel Universe and all its complexities.
I mean, I can't think of an example where 2 family members have been in the MCU playing different characters.
I mean, aside from this one, I'm trying to think. I don't...
So, but then Sam goes to Morgenthau and tries to talk her down, and he has a very genuine and honest conversation with her about everything that's going on.
Yeah, it's actually a very good scene. I think he mentioned during this scene that he actually was a counselor, like a trauma counselor at one point. So that's where he gets the experience from.
Yeah, because that's how we're introduced to him in Winter Soldier, aside from the whole on your left thing.
Yes, that scene was fantastic, but besides the point.
Yeah, it's a very good scene. It's really, really cool. And then it's immediately followed by the cliched, oh my god, you betrayed me. I can't believe you were just keeping me talking until someone comes in to arrest them, because John Walker blunders in. It's like, okay, you're under arrest. And Sam's like, whoa, this wasn't the plan. And Kylie's like, oh my god, Sam, you betrayed me. And it's like, we've had some really good writing so far. Why are we resorting to this?
Yeah, it's all because Walker was just so impatient.
Yeah. And it basically escalates into a fight. Imagine that. And America not knowing about de-escalation. I'm sorry, I'm making a lot of digs at America right now. It's totally not your fault, but hey...
No, we deserve it.
But I mean, the whole show sort of revolves around this idea of Captain America and what America means. It's gonna come up. So, there's a big fight throughout the place where they're at. They drop a bunch of vials. Zemo catches up to the guy with the vials. It's just like, oh, a bunch of super soldier serum vials. I'm going to do myself a little tap dance on them.
And manages to tap dance on all but one.
Yeah. So Morgenthau and this other guy, Nico, flee. And Walker recovers the only surviving vial. And they fight a bit more until, Battlestar is killed.
Yeah, it was honestly like in terms of death scenes, that was kind of pitiful because he just gets smacked up against a pillar and just he's dead now.
People die from head injuries, but yeah, it's a very Disney death. Like, slight tap to the back of the head. That's my off switch, I'm afraid. And unfortunately, where Walker is concerned...
And that's when I got mad.
He goes full Super Saiyan, hunts down the guy that did it, who is scrambling and panicking and saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, is unarmed, is surrendering, chases him outside, takes the shield, and either bludgeons him to death or even decapitates him whilst a bunch of people are outside filming him.
Yeah, that scene was horrendous. I was gasping at it first time watching it. And there's this scene like a little bit afterwards where he's holding the shield and there's blood just scraping the bottom of it. And it's like this symbolism that he's tarnished the shield's legacy almost. There's blood on the history. And now that people have recorded it and have seen him doing this, it's not going to go away. You can't just scrub away the blood that easily.
And again, this is very relevant because whilst the show was airing, the George Floyd trial was happening, which hung on cell phone footage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we got the verdict that we did. So, yeah, the whole world is watching is the episode's title, and it's a very relevant message. Jesus, that whole scene, and it's... Because here's the thing, they constantly say throughout the show before this that John Walker constantly makes the right decision in the heat of battle. And then he kills a surrendering man in front of a crowd full of people. And you think, okay, this is the start of him unraveling. And it is, but it isn't. This brings us to the next episode, Truth. Where John Walker is immediately pulled in front of a panel of military people. And it's like, okay, so we made you Captain America. We're hitting Control Z on that decision. You're no longer Captain America. We're taking that from you. And again, this is another juxtaposition between him and Steve Rogers, because Steve didn't become Captain America because the government made him that. He was Captain America. He basically, beyond a propaganda tool, created that symbol. And so for the government to just pin that on Walker and take it off like so many medals, I mean, this was something that was waiting to happen.
Yep, especially like if you're with the comics, he's U.S. agent. He is not Captain America. So the transition is always going to be bound to happen. And I think it was at this point that I also saw another interesting parallel, right? When Steve Rogers was Captain America, I don't think he ever once introduced himself as Captain America. It was always, my name's Steve Rogers. I'm Steve. And Walker is so insistent upon the fact that he is Captain America that he goes around, he's like, I am Captain America, I am Captain America. And nothing about him now screams Captain America. He's just John Walker now. And I think that's what gets him the hardest. He's nobody now.
Yeah.
Or at least in his eyes.
And again, it's the idea of the government being able to assign symbolism. It's so bizarre. And again, it's something that's very unique to this sort of world. And admittedly, we're skipping ahead slightly for that whole hearing thing, because the episode properly starts with Walker, Falcon, and Winter Soldier having a big old fight in which Walker destroys Falcon's wings.
Just slices them right off. Kind of a hint for what happens later on, but yeah.
Jesus. I mean, Wilson, in fact, gives as good as he gets. He breaks one of Walker's arms, but still, it's like, not the wings. Holy shit. No, that's Sam's whole thing. How dare you? Oh, God. And was it this point that it's revealed that Walker took the super soldier serum?
I think it was revealed a little bit beforehand. Whatchamacallit? He took it before he murdered the guy, I'm pretty sure. He had a whole sit down with Hoskins, and Hoskins was like, they had the whole question, if you had the super soldier serum, would you take it? And Hoskins would be like, yeah, in a heartbeat. And it really
Winners don't use drugs, except steroids, in which case, use lots of drugs.
Yeah, so he's all super serumed up. They still manage to beat his ass. And then he gets put in front of the council and is just like, okay, you're no longer Captain America. In fact, they don't give him a dishonorable discharge, but they don't exactly give him an honorable discharge. I think it's called other than honorable discharge. Revoke all of his benefits and pensions and stuff. And his wife is just like, okay, you know what? Just breathe. It's going to be okay. You need to visit Lamar's parents, sort that whole thing out with them. But while having that conversation, they're approached by, and again, I squeezed a little bit of this, Countess Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, played by Julie Louis-Dreyfus.
Yep, we've got a new face in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I hope we see a ton more of her later on, because Val, except don't call her Val, in her face is just so compelling already. We've only got a couple minutes of her on the screen, but at the same time, she's just so much fun.
She is so much fun, and a lot of that is, I can never remember if it's Julie or Julia Louis-Dreyfus, but she brings something to it. And also, it's just so cool in this character, because for those of you who don't know, Countessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine was basically Nick Fury's girlfriend. Kind of does her a bit of a disservice, but best description I can think of in the comics. And I always wanted her to be in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but she never was. And now we get to see her, which is so cool. And Julie clearly brought some of her skills from Veep into this sort of world, which I really like. And basically says, hey, so I know they just discharged you and everything, but they're idiots. They're fools. I'm glad you took the super soldier serum. And there's a bit of a grey area surrounding who gets the shield, because he's been told by the hearing that he has to return the shield. And it's like, here's a little contract for you. Just give it over. Give me a bell. And meanwhile, Morgenthau is not happy about the death of a fellow Flagsmasher. And it's basically like, okay, so you know what? We're going to escalate our plans. And it's like, ooh, what are they going to get up to? And then there's a Bucky. It was Bucky catches up to Zemo, who was absconded in between episodes, at the Sokovia Memorial. And he mentions that memorial earlier in the show. He's like, hey, did either of you ever go to the Sokovian Memorial? No? Didn't think so. It's like, ooh, oh yeah, oh. And he sees them there. And it's such a beautiful scene, because both Bruhl and Stan do such an amazing job, and it's just like, Zemo reiterates his perspective. Winter Soldier reiterates his perspective. And it looks like, ooh, is he going to kill him? Is he going to kill him? Remember,
He's an asshole.
But Dora Milaje come back and is just like, yeah, no, they're going to take you to the raft. And that's basically, except for one little bit at the end of the last episode, that we see of Zemo.
Yeah, he even says like a little goodbye. So it's just like, it seems very final that, like, you know, he's going to be escorted off. We're not going to see too much of him. And then Bucky actually asks a favor of the Dora Milaje, and we see that later on in the episode what that favor was.
Yeah. And while that's all going on, Sam goes back to Baltimore to visit Isaiah Bradley because he never got the full story from him previously, and he does now. And again, these two actors, oh my god! I don't think there is a single bad performance in this entire show, to be perfectly honest. There's lots of different kind of performances, but there's not a single bad one. And Anthony Mackie and this guy do such a fantastic job. You can feel all the pain and hurt of generations in every single line of dialogue. It's so painful to watch, but you can't stop watching. And seeing what Isaiah's life has been reduced to because of the government, and what it means for a black person to be representative of this country. But here's the thing. Captain America, Steve, was never representative of the government. He was representative of the country, and indeed the American people, for both good and bad. Walker was definitely a representative of the government, a government that did all those things to Isaiah and continues to do horrible, horrible things, even when a Democratic president is elected. Just saying. Sorry, I am just a barrel full of laughs today. By the way, the UK government, fucking awful. Should point that out. Just corrupt and terrible. Just making that clear. So, Sam at this point has the shield, and he then calls his sister to tell her he's coming back home, and discovers that they can't even sell the family boat and make even a profit of that. And then for the rest of the episode, we basically get... It becomes very... What's the best phrase I can look for? Very down to earth. All the characters suddenly take a step back from these big world-shattering events. They stop globe-trotting, trying to take down terrorists, and they just focus on character development and fixing up this boat, helping each other, and Sebastian Stan flirting with Sam Wilson's sister.
Yeah, that was hilarious. And just Sam immediately saying, don't you dare. Don't do it. Bucky disregarding.
Yeah, and it was such a breath of fresh air, because that implies that everything we'd seen previously wasn't that good. But it was a nice change of pace to just see them all take a step back and just... And it's just basically a big montage of them helping out in the community, calling in favors, everyone coming together. It was really, really nice. And it's followed by Walker feeling very lost, alone. He sees like photos of himself as Captain America with a phrase like, Cap is back. Like, no. And he even meets with, as we said earlier, Lamar's parents. That whole thing goes down. And that was a very painful thing to watch. Because, again, all the performances are so great. And while that's going on, Batroc makes a little bit of a reappearance. Ooh. We see a bit more Morgenthau. I'm skipping over some bits because I'm just cautious of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get Sam and Bucky training with the shield and having an honest conversation about whether or not Sam should be Captain America. And then we get...
Please be a montage. Please be a montage. Please be a montage.
Big old Sam Wilson, Captain America training montage. Anthony Mackie is doing flips and kicks and all sorts. It's amazing.
Yep, and training with the shield as well, getting better at throwing it, better at catching it, doing cool flips before catching it, just generally showing off.
I mean, I am 100% a heterosexual man, but watching this scene, I was like,
oh no, he's hot!
It's so cool. It's so fucking cool. The music is great, and it's got to remember this is a not so much accumulation, but a continuation of character development that's been going on for years for Sam and for Anthony Mackie. This is what's so great about the Marvel Cinematic Universe: is characters do not begin and end in one movie. It's a continuation that transcends individual actors and writers and characters, just continuing this great, grand, glorious tapestry. This is why I'm so proud to be a Marvel fan, and why I've been laughing at DC fans ever since 2008. I talked about this before, but I remember I was in university at the same time that Thor came out, and which is the same time that Green Lantern came out. Seeing the two box office results at the same time, I laughed and I laughed and I laughed.
Yeah, as someone who hasn't even seen Green Lantern, it's just, it's a disaster. And you're talking to someone who is also a Marvel fan, but at the same time, like, I do like DC, but I like Watchmen over, Superman and Batman. Watchmen's pretty cool, but that's a whole different thing.
The movie, the TV show, or the original graphic novel, because I have individual opinions on all of them that I can't go into because we're nearly to the 2-hour mark already.
Yeah, okay, yeah. 2 hours. Oh my goodness. Time flies.
Time does indeed fly. And what I like about it is, again, this all comes back to the conversation that Isaiah has with a black man being representative of America. And what I like about this, the show pulls no punches. It shows both sides of that argument and how there's not just like one correct way of doing things. What Sam's got to figure out is his way. And that's how they present it. And that's the best way they could possibly write it. And this whole show is written with such clarity and such awareness. It really is truly refreshing. There's nothing, at least, bear in mind, I'm a white man, so I have privilege, so maybe I'm not going to see something that is potentially problematic, but for my money, I did not see anything problematic. Maybe someone else would have disagreed with me on that front. Fair enough. I trust their opinion over mine, but that's what I love about it. It doesn't shy away from these hard questions. While that's going on, Morgan Thau announces that she's hired Batroc. Yay, he's back. And I love it. George St. Pierre needs to be in more things. Like, I've only ever seen him in this, but he needs to be in more things. Like, if we can have Dave Bautista in lots of things, we can have George St. Pierre. We can do that. Morgan Thau reveals that she is hired Batroc, and that she's going to get payback on Wilson for seemingly betraying her. This is where I start to go off Carly, just a little bit. Yeah. And they're also going to take their revenge against the GRC, who is deciding to devote on a very controversial act that would force the relocation of lots of people. Imagine that, a relocation bill being controversial. That's never happened in the history of the world. Jesus, there's so much going on. This show's so clever. And they take over that meeting. It's like, ooh, what's going on there? While that's going on, we get a little post-credit scene with Walker forging his own crude Captain America shield with Lamar's medal pinned to the underside of it. Ooh, that's going to be very interesting. And now, before we talk about the final episode, we can have another ad. Check it out. And we're back. Last episode, home stretch. Here we go. So, this episode, One World, One People, starts at the GRC meeting hall. Where was this? Was this in New York?
I think it was New York City. Yeah, Manhattan.
Yeah. Okay. So, Flagsmashers start infiltrating that. And Sam Wilson makes his new appearance as a pretty damn cool-looking Falcon Captain America hybrid suit.
Yeah, you said he had to decide like how he wanted to go about this and take his own twist on things, and he's brought himself into the role as like keeping the wings, but also taking up the shield and keeping a majority of the aesthetic of the previous Falcon suit while just slapping some red, white, and blue on it.
I mean, I've seen... this seems very similar to the version of the comics. I haven't read the comics, but I've seen pictures of Sam Wilson as Captain America. It looks very similar to that. Mm-hmm. And it looks pretty cool, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, the red, white, and blue does look a little bit silly, but this is a Marvel Cinematic Universe where big green guys are commonplace. So, you kind of have to forgive that. The overall design, I think, looks really, really cool. And so he tries to attack the Flagsmashers along with Bucky and Sharon Carter, who's like, screw the fact that I'm not allowed back in the country. I'll find a way back in. Power broker, power broker, power broker, power broker, power broker, power broker. So the Flagsmashers make off with a bunch of hostages. They try to take them down. Sharon melts one of the Flagsmashers with a poison gas.
Yeah, Mercury, super powerful. Apparently.
His skin was bubbling! That was fucking horrifying!
Yeah, I think we've seen worse, if I'm going to be honest. Walker committed worse, in my opinion. He decapitated a man.
Oh yeah, but we didn't see that! I'm not saying it's worse than that, but the fact that we actually see, like, a man bubble... You know what it reminded me of? I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, the Mr. Bean movie.
Oh, no, I've seen the snippet you're talking about, but I have seen the movie.
The snippet, spoiler for the Mr. Bean movie, where he accidentally puts paint thinner on the painting of Whistler's mother, and the face of Whistler's mother goes all bubbly. That's like that, but on a man, in real life. It was horrifying. Anyway, this has been your daily reminder of the fact that Rowan Atkinson played Mr. Bean. Thank you. Anyway, so... a bunch of stuff happens, confronting Batroc, who gets shot. No, Batroc! Why? Oh, God, we hardly knew ye. You know what? As sad as I am to see this man go, the legend that was Batroc the Leaper, I feel it only fit to pay the proper respects to the man with this.
Throw out your hands, stick out your tush, hands on your hips, give 'em a push.
That's called the French mistake. In the arms of the angel. Anyway. So, Batroc is dead, shot by... It was Carter, wasn't it?
Carter, yeah.
Yeah. Who actually hired him. Oh, it's like she's playing both sides. I wonder if she's the power broker. Not to belabor this point, but anyway, Jesus, moving on. It's a big old confrontation between Sam and Morgenthau, a bunch of armored trucks with hostages in, a helicopter of hostages in, Sam winging around the place. We haven't seen a lot of scenes, actually, in the whole show, aside from the first episode, with Sam flying around as Falcon. Clearly, they had to budget that time appropriately, and I guess they could have done worse, to be perfectly honest. And so they rescue all the hostages. Walker turns up in, his outfit with his handmade, pretty shitty-looking Captain America shield. They're kind of just, fine with him turning up. Just like, yeah, okay, sure, you killed a man, but you're here now, might as well help. We're not going to object to that. I don't know. It becomes clear that a lot of Flagsmashers are not entirely keen on sacrificing themselves for the cause, like Carly is, who does end up sacrificing herself for the cause. And the last words to Sam is that she's sorry. So, I feel bad, but not as bad as I should do.
And Sharon was the one who killed her in the end, wasn't she? She shot her from behind. Oh, yeah. As Carly was about to shoot Sam, she kicked his ass a little bit. It was just, she was so desperate. It was kind of hard watching, because at the same time, the struggles that she went through, and you know why she's doing the things she does, and seeing her come to such a pitiful end is just kind of sad, but at the same time, you're like, woohoo, the heroes won.
I mean, the real climax of the episode is not the confrontation between Morgenthau or with Batroc or with any of these other characters. It's them saving the hostages, and then they say the senators is just like, okay, thanks for saving us, guys. Now we can finally put these terrorists to bed. And then Sam gives his big old speech. I mean, it basically boils down to...
Life is good, but it can be better.
But way more long-winded, and this is where the preachiness comes into it. Like, everything he's saying, I 100% agree with. It just goes on a bit too long.
Yeah, I think the total length maybe was around, I want to say 2 minutes. It was a 2-minute long speech, I want to say. And like he kind of repeats himself a little bit, but at the end of the day, he's trying to get a point across, and he does it pretty effectively. Like everybody listens to him, yeah.
The only thing that really stopped it from becoming slightly unbearable for me was the fact that it was Anthony Mackie giving it, and he gave it so very well. He gave such a great performance. But yeah, that could have been slimmed down just a little bit. And I mean, it wasn't cheesy, it wasn't sappy, and they didn't make the music swell too much while he was doing it. But it could have been shaved down just a little bit, because everything he was saying about, how you label people terrorists, but they're just fighting for their homes, and how they're making ultimately terrible decisions, but also the fact that while he's doing this, he's saying it not as Sam Wilson, not as Falcon, but as Captain America. The full force of what that means. And even though he's just made that debut, people already kind of accept him as that because he's already established as Falcon. But also these senators are getting a dressing down from a guy who's at least claiming to represent America. And that is quintessentially something that Steve Rogers would have done and indeed did do. Because, I mean, the thing I always point out when it comes to Captain America in terms of how he represents America, let's not forget, there was a point in the comics where Steve completely abandoned the role of Captain America because he hated what the US government was doing and took up this brand new persona called Nomad that didn't last very long, but still. And because that's the kind of guy he was. He didn't want to be representative of war crimes against humanity, and corruption, and deceit, and brutality. He wanted to remind the politicians about what this country is supposed to represent. And that's what Sam does in this moment. So as far as I'm concerned, Sam Wilson is Captain America now.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody who disagrees either at this point has not watched the entire series or just is just so, I don't know, man. He's Captain America. As far as the show is concerned, he is Captain America. The show even says it at the very end in that little itty-bitty credit scene where they shift the title away from Falcon and the Winter Soldier and switch it to Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Yeah. It is so nice to see that because it's like incredibly validating, incredibly wholesome. Yes, he is Captain America now. He is no longer the Falcon, even though he's taken some stuff from his Falcon days and has made it into his own thing. Yeah.
That's actually a point, actually. Red Wing. What's up with that? They talk about it like it's a real person, but is it an AI? Is Sam controlling? What's going on with Red Wing? Actually, you know what? Let's not talk about that because we're already at 2 hours and we've got to wrap this shit up. So, we see Zemo for one last time in the raft, hearing that a lot of Flagsmashers have been taken into custody. Oh dear, he can't get to them from the raft. Surely he has his butler blow them up.
He has the last laugh at the end of the day. Good for him.
Can I just say, that butler kicks the ass of the butler from Spider-Man who didn't reveal to Harry Osborn that his father was Green Goblin when he really should have done. Like, that's a dedication. Alfred is off in the background just like, yeah, you know what? That's how you should do it. Fuck you, old guy. That had like 2 lines in the whole 3 movies. Anyway, Walker officially gets a reskin of his costume, becoming U.S. agent, much to the approval of Countess Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. And then we get Bucky, because in the previous episode, we talked. Sam was telling about how, like, you think you've been making amends, but you haven't been making amends. You've been avenging, which is a fantastic line. So he goes to the old man who we saw at the very first episode, who's
Nakashima,
whose son he killed, and confesses to him that he killed him. And we don't see the outcome of that, but we know that Bucky is now finally on a true path to actual redemption, at least that he can recognize, that he can make peace with. And both of these actors do such a great job. It's such a short scene, but the acting is so fantastic. He leaves the book full of crossed out names that he's been updating throughout the whole show with his therapist, and then he visits the Wilson family down south. Right before that, Sam also visits the Bradleys to get their take on everything that's going on. They sort of make up. That's really nice. And it ends with Sam taking Isaiah and Eli to the Smithsonian, to the Captain America exhibit, where he sees himself, the immortalized statue with everything explaining what happened to him. I have no fucking clue how Sam managed to get that made, but I guess now that he's Captain America, the Smithsonian isn't going to tell him no, especially after he gave them the shield and they fucking gave it away to the next random Johnny that turned up.
Yeah, it's the least they can do to make things up. And admittedly, that scene, out of all of the episodes, that was the one that made me tear up. There was such great performances from everybody there. It was just, oof. Hit me right in the feels.
It really did, because it means something. It really meant something. And like I say, they buddy it up down south with the whole family. It's cool to see. I like when Sebastian Stan sort of jokes around with the kids and stuff. That was really cool. He's such a charismatic guy. And then we get a post-credit scene with Sharon Carter receiving a pardon from the US government, getting her old job back. I guess no one took that job. Cool. And then she gets on her phone and says, okay, so yeah, I'm the power broker. Wink. We know. We know. Do you think we don't know? We fucking know. It's a little bit annoying. And also, I'm not sure how I feel about Sharon Carter being the power broker, being this criminal, because she's fucking Agent 13 in the comics. She's a badass that truly fights for the good guys. And I'm not saying that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is beholden to the comic book versions, but I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe we'll see how we go. Are we getting a season 2? We'll talk about that right after we have some more ads. And we're back. Final thoughts. We're getting a season 2, right? I'm pretty sure we are getting a season 2.
I haven't seen any announcements personally, but if we don't get a season 2, I will storm Disney Plus myself and demand it.
I mean, I think at this point we're owed. We know, I've heard that there are stories and, characters that are going to pop back up. Sam Wilson will be back as Captain America. Looking forward to that. At this point, I'm just taking Marvel projects as they come. Some of them are taking a bit longer than others. Black Widow. So let's talk about some of the, briefly, some of the problems with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Namely, it was not as well received as WandaVision. I think part of the reason was that WandaVision was so unique and so creative and so interesting. And then we get this, which is also creative and also interesting, but feels very much still in keeping with previous things we've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like we say with Winter Soldier, whereas WandaVision felt so very different, like a breath of fresh air. I feel like it might have been better if this show had come before WandaVision.
Yeah, I think WandaVision, of course, is just a masterpiece all on its own. And I don't think anything Marvel could have done would have, been more of a success after WandaVision. Just like, you have such a masterpiece, and having something follow it up, it's just immediately not going to get as much love and attention. So maybe shifting the order around would have done Falcon and the Winter Soldier a better service. But at the end of the day, it came after WandaVision, and people are always going to end up comparing it. So it's not fair to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but at the end of the day, it's a masterpiece all its own. And comparing it is just, I think it does it a disservice.
I completely agree. Although I will say the critical reception has not been as fantastic, particularly the last episode. I think that's because there was a lot going on. It felt a little bit rushed, and a lot of the good graces that have been built up with characters like Morgenthau and Walker and stuff like that got diminished slightly. They're kind of like, okay, we've got to simplify things so we can have the big Falcon flying around scene. And I understand why, but it's sort of not necessarily cut the legs out from under the show, but came pretty close. Like, keep that hacksaw blade away from my kneecaps, please. And it's not bad. I liked the episode. I thought it was a great episode, and there were so many things, especially towards the end, that I truly felt were justified and deserving of the show. But I can see why some people didn't particularly like it, and I can understand why some people were disappointed by it. I was definitely not. I thought this is a great show, and I look forward to seeing more stuff like it. It's just, again, you shouldn't compare it to WandaVision, but people inevitably will. Is there anything else, Kayleigh, that we've left out?
I don't think so. I mean, like I said, I hope season 2 comes around. And if it doesn't, then I will be genuinely surprised, especially because, like, of course the series was able to wrap up most of the questions and gave a lot of answers and, like, did a little cute little bow at the end of things, solidifying things. But there's also characters that I still want to see more of in the context of the show. Like, I want to see more of Sam Wilson's adventures as Captain America. I want to see our beautiful queen, Contessa Valentina Allegra de la Fontaine. I want to see her more. I want to see more of Sharon's exploits and see if she goes down the path of, you know, maybe redeeming herself a little bit. Maybe she's the power broker for a little while longer and decides, you know what, criminal life, maybe not so much for me anymore. There's just so many things you could explore that I think it's very worthy of a season 2. And if it isn't, then at least maybe we can see these characters in other series and films. Hopefully. Absolutely, because the Marvel Cinematic Universe is at a key position right now to continue the stories of characters that were very much side characters, like slightly minor characters in previous movies, but make them the new protagonists, as well as introduce new characters like Miss Marvel. That's what I'm hoping is going to happen. I mean, obviously, we're going to get things like, you know, more Spider-Man movies, more Doctor Strange movies, and that'll be cool. But I want to see more focus on characters like Falcon and Winter Soldier, like on the Dora Milaje, just all these people, all these characters that are just ripe for expansion. And granted, we may see that in things like the comics and some of the TV shows that I don't watch, like some of the old animated stuff that was crap. I'm sorry, Man of Action. I'm tired of you. You have worn out your welcome. But I think there's always going to be these opportunities. And the great thing about Marvel is it seems like they're taking advantage of these opportunities. They could have told a very much, not watered down, but a slightly less socially relevant story about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They saw an opportunity to tell something that was relevant and meaningful, impactful, and they did it. And they did it really well. So I'm happy. It's a lovely feeling. I'm happy too. It's just, it's so nice seeing, like, you know, the core Avengers. They're like the basically the face of Marvel at this point. Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Iron Man. But there's so many other characters they've already introduced into the Marvel Cinematic Universe that haven't gotten their own spotlight yet. That's why I'm excited for a Black Widow movie, because she's been around for a while, but she hasn't gotten her own thing yet. It's why I would be excited for, like, a Hawkeye movie or a sort of mini film, because he's been around for ages. Well, we are getting a Hawkeye TV series. That is upcoming. That is, yeah, I'm super excited for that. I almost forgot that existed. We're going to get Kate Bishop played by Haley Steinfeld. Yay! Yay! Hopefully that's going to make up for the disappointment that was the ending of Bumblebee. Why didn't you go with him, Haley? Why didn't you go with Bumblebee and travel America with him and Optimus Prime? Don't stay with your family. Go and have adventures in the 80s. Anyway, on that whingy, geek-filled note, I think we're going to end the show. Thank you very much, Kayleigh, for joining me today. Capers, please check out her articles on A Place to Hang Your Cape. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
And if you enjoy the show too, Capers, please tell your friends. Shout it from the rooftops. And if you haven't already, go back and listen to some of our other super episodes, like our WandaVision episode. Please do check that out. You can listen to the show on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, or at podcapers.com. If you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe come on the show yourself, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AP2HYC. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our logo, the lovely microphone, the red and blue 3D glasses, those are mine. And thank you for listening. This has been Podcapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. Cue the music!